What's going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 2009 mixtape by Cameron and Vado. Basically, this mixtape is called Boss of All Bosses. It's a Gangsta Grillz mixtape, and it came out in the summer of 2009. So particularly, Cameron kind of took off 2008 and a decent chunk of 2007. He had kind of had some personal problems. I remember reading a Double XL in early 2009 where he talked about that. But in 2007, he was getting ready to get into like a beef with 50 Cent. Originally, he kind of had a beef sparked with 50 Cent that was going to go on throughout 2007, but then it didn't. And then he took off all of 2008, but he came back in early 2009 with Crime Pays. Cameron came back in early 2009 with Crime Pays, and then later on he found Vado and developed like the group called UN, which he kind of had an album that came out, and then he just had an album with just Vado without the UN name. So he did a number of projects with Vado between like the late 2000s and the early 2010s to about 2012 or so. There was a ton of like Vado projects that Cameron did, and it's particularly, this is an interesting one. I remember this mixtape from back in the day. It's pretty sheer highlight on here. I was looking to see if there's any single information to see if there are any music videos made. There might have been. I'm not really sure. I know at least that the albums that he did with Vado had some degree of singles on it. They're a little bit tough to find. I mean, really the stuff that Cameron did with Vado is kind of offhanded and not quite like in the sheer spotlight. This is a lot more kind of not necessarily alternative, but just pretty extremely low key type stuff. Like I feel like for the most part, this was kind of, I mean, Cameron had bounced back somewhat in 2009, but he wasn't in his charting days like he was in 2002 and 2004 when he was making songs like Oh Boy and Hey Ma, and like the stuff he did with Kanye West in 2004 and some of that type of stuff. This is kind of, I mean, Cameron definitely got a resurgence, but it just kind of felt like he was more in like the underground, almost kind of lightly above ground circuit as far as that kind of went. And Vado is pretty underground too. He's definitely like an East Coast cat. He's like a more militant version of someone like Jadakiss or Chic Luch or Styles P, someone like that. He just has that kind of East Coast appeal. Definitely one of those East Coast cats that's pretty super lyrical. Vado is definitely pretty lyrical on here, and Cameron has that swag rap that he does extremely well. So that's kind of the thing about it. They both have that particular style. And this mixtape is pretty good. I mean, it's not like a full-blown classic, but it's better than average. I would definitely say there are some gems on here to really denote and kind of say, like some particular songs that are just excellent across the board would be songs like Get It, Blow My High, The Baddest is pretty good, Soul Plane is really excellent, has a great sample on there. So there are some ones. There's some songs I remember from 14, 13 years ago and such, but there's also some new songs that I found on here that I didn't listen to back in the day that are pretty good. I felt like originally I thought I was going to like this the same amount that I liked it back in the day, which back in, 13, 14 years ago, I liked approximately about 5 or 6, maybe 7 songs, and now I like about 7, almost approximately 10. So I found a few more. I would have to say that the production on here is not always classic. It does kind of have, like, there's some samples on here and just some poor beats on here that kind of bog down the project, but when the samples hit, they hit. I mean, Cameron is a cat that likes samples. I don't know if all of these are from the 70s or the 80s or something like that, but for the most part, I don't know what songs these samples are from. And this is a project that doesn't have a wiki article about it, so that's kind of the thing, is it's just kind of the information is just kind of more impromptu as far as that kind of goes, just kind of working with it. But I just would have to say I could not find a music video. I looked up on YouTube and Google to see if there were any music videos released for Boss of All Bosses, and I couldn't really find it. And if I had to guess, it might have been Arab music, not really sure. Can't really think of ones that it would have been. There's some good songs on here, but it's just kind of the concept of not really certain as to what had happened. But Vado does have a solo mixtape called Slime Flu that I'm going to get to at some stage. And there are a series more of these Boss of All Bosses mixtapes, plus the Cameron and Vado album from 2011 and then the UN album from 2010. So there is some stuff here. Plus, I'm going to review some more Cameron stuff, so there's some good concepts around this project. But so yeah, with there being a lack of a single, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about the 10 songs I recommend. So there's 19 songs on here, 5 skits, 19 songs. There's 24 songs on the total mixtapes. That minus the 5 skits, it narrows it down to 19. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend those 7 songs I recommend, and then the 3 almost songs. So the 7 songs I recommend would be The Baddest, Blow My High, Different Cloth, Get It, Ric Flair, Ride With Me, and Soul Plane. And the 3 almost songs would be Lennox Ave, Can't Say Goodbye, and Arab Music. So that's just kind of the concept. So to talk about the almost songs, Arab music is kind of an alert, wide awake, stepping out cut. I would definitely say this one's very operatic and has some fury about it. It's a fury song and it's just for like a wild night. I definitely feel like this is probably one of the more litty songs on here. I mean, it's an almost song just because the beat is kind of somewhat grating, but it's definitely one that has like the most kind of carnivorous energy. I feel like Lennox Ave is another one that has that kind of carnivorous energy. And then I would probably say like there's another song that kind of does. There's just some ones that are kind of a lot more just like East Coast sounding, real kind of pop off, lid pops off kind of atmosphere of songs and stuff. This real kind of not full blown party songs, but definitely songs where you're getting like turned up and are just wide awake and just having a good time, just in a more busy sense. So Arab music is one of those type ones that does that. Can't Say Goodbye is kind of like Can't Say Goodbye is kind of a breezy city traverse life song. It's a song that's for on the go and getting errands done, that type of stuff, and it's kind of got an exquisite feel towards it. Yeah, this kind of has more of an exquisite feel towards it. This feels a lot more ritzy and somewhat sophisticated. It's sophisticated to like a certain degree. Just the concept about it, this kind of more flashy city stepping busy life as far as that kind of goes. It's kind of one of the more jivey kind of ones. I do like that concept because Cameron is from the East Coast and Vado is too. So kind of getting some of these ones where they're not quite as much residential or local like certain folks. Like when you think of just different cats from different coasts and parts of the United States and stuff as far as that kind of goes. This kind of has a little bit more ritzy, kind of busy feel about it. I feel like all the almost songs kind of have that particular feel, but Can't Say Goodbye is an almost song just because I didn't really like the sample at the beginning of the song. Kind of has a sample that takes a little bit of a learning curve to get used to. I mean, when you hear that sample just that immediately rather than maybe at the end of the song or something like that, it just is not quite as catching as like maybe folks thought it would be, but it is, I do like this song enough to say it's worth recommending, but it's just one I'm on the fence about. And then Lennox Ave is the third almost song for me. This is kind of a fast life, out and about gem. It's dramatic and it has like a grim city bop type feel about it, and it's very lively. I feel like this one, along with Arab music, are two of the ones that have like the most kind of jive on here. There's some other ones, like I'd probably say Different Cloth has another. Different Cloth is that one I was trying to list before that has a pretty good busy assortment about it, but Lennox Ave is definitely one that kind of has that particularly lively feel about it. So these are just some good ones. Just really kind of like the strings on this song or whatever that is, the string keys on Lennox Ave are pretty good. This really makes it kind of sound like kind of dramatic, intense, and busy as far as that kind of goes in like a grim sense. So it's pretty good. So to talk about the 7 songs I recommend on here, like Ric Flair has one of the best beats on this project. This is like a really gloomy and superb paced beat, I would say. It's a powerful beat, I definitely feel like, and it's one of the best on the tape. This is a very busy tune. This is just one that kind of has some liveliness towards it. Not a ton of beats like this. I kind of feel like this one almost kind of feels like Roman or something like that. It just kind of feels like something you'd hear in a movie, just really that kind of more dramatic and kind of like gloomy and kind of like a tense kind of tone as far as that kind of goes. Just a great beat to rap to. I would definitely say they tear this song apart. Soul Plane is a soulful song that really worked real well. This is a dusky kind of soulful music tune. It has a cinematic kind of feel. I would definitely say it's very vivid and has great production on there. I just feel like the sample is really nailed. This is an excellent example of one where the soul and the kind of samples on the song just work extremely well. This is another great song to rap to, I feel like. Ride With Me is a nice one. This has like a mafioso kind of East Coast feel about it. It's suave and kind of has like a richer tune for evening bustle. I would definitely say it has a suave and kind of rich feel about it. And it's just a good song for just being out and about and just kind of a more evening sense and just kind of that jive as far as getting some stuff done. It's kind of one, it just kind of feels like Grand Theft Auto like and just kind of like casino like some of those mafioso and kind of more noir, it's kind of a tough word to say, noir type movies and that sort of concept as far as that kind of goes, just looking after it like that. Just some of those particular pitches just kind of really has like a East Coast kind of tinted beat and just like a mafioso sense, but it's just a good one, just kind of more jivey or just kind of a more sophisticated kind of Blue Blood-esque type tune for stepping out and cruising around and that type of stuff. So it's a good one. Blow My High is probably one of my favorite songs on this project. This is definitely an excellent one. This is just a glimmering kind of hazy bop. I feel like this is a great smoking song and it has an excellent beat for this mixtape. It's just an overall excellent one. Great sample on here. Great just kind of glimmering and great just kind of sparkling and glimmering kind of beat on here that just works. It's pretty hazy and gauzy, I would definitely say, with the concept about it. It's just a real kind of snappy song that's just great for stepping out a bit. I mean, a lot of these songs kind of feel like you're pretty positioned towards your car and such. I would definitely say a lot of this is pretty vehicle music. Like I feel like Different Cloth, Arab music, Can't Say Goodbye, Lennox Ave, Ride With Me, Soul Plane, or not Soul Plane, Ride With Me, Blow My High. A lot of these are pretty, even Ric Flair in some cases, pretty carbon. So a lot of these are kind of vehicle oriented just for kind of just traverse and city stepping and some of that type of stuff. Like there's less songs on this project. They're more for the club. Like the only real song I can full blown recommend that's club oriented just for women dancing and that type of stuff is Get It, which we'll get to. But other than that, for the most part, this album is pretty just kind of ritzy car life and just kind of traverse and just kind of city stepping. So it's interesting to get that. But it is good. I mean, there's some great East Coast kind of sampling and this blue blood kind of beats on here that work. And Blow My High is just a really snappy one that just has that kind of pacey kind of design. Get It, like I was talking about, is a pretty glitzy night out gem. This is basically about the only real club song I can think about on here that has some venom about it. This has a gleaming beat. It's a flashy club song with a great hook. I would definitely say this is just a nice one. It's a real kind of, there need to be more songs like this. I remember this song from back in the day. Both Cameron and Vado tear this song apart. It's just another song. There need to be another one. It's one of the few songs I just look after. If you're just looking for classic kind of vintage crunk type numbers for just getting crunk in the club and VIP and popping bottles and that type of stuff, this is your song, but there's just not many clones like it. So that's kind of the thing. But it is a nice one. The Baddest is a really great one. This is kind of a smoky, hazed out gem. I would say this is a great song to smoke to. It's soulful and kind of floaty, and it's not just a hardcore cut. And what I mean by that is this is probably a song that you could listen to outside of a mixtape sense. If you're listening to this with some friends that are not just mixtape buddies and that type of stuff that you normally listen to mixtapes with, this is a pretty one that kind of has some crossover appeal. I just would have to say this is one that's not just like super hardcore, like only underground is going to know about it. I mean, it's kind of one, it's not an overtly talked about song, but it's one that I think could probably convince some folks to say like, damn, this is pretty good. What is this song? Where'd you get this song from? That type of stuff. Get It's another one like that. Blow My Highs like that. There are some ones that kind of do that. But, and then Different Cloth. Different Cloth is kind of a nightlife cut. I would feel like this one's kind of like nightlife, kind of similar to Get It, but just less oriented towards the nightclub. I feel like this one's just kind of more paced, just kind of out and about, maybe on foot, or just kind of having the concept of just traversing through the city. It's just kind of a solid smoking song, I would say. This is a dramatic, intense kind of thriller. This is definitely one that you listen to when you're just kind of maybe a little bit paranoid and just kind of just more tense about it, but still enough to have a good time. Just kind of that more quick life and busy life kind of atmosphere. It's just kind of, there are some songs on here that kind of depict kind of being a busybody somewhat. This kind of has that particular kind of alert and just kind of more bustling kind of sense as far as that kind of goes. So that's just some good stuff. But yeah, to talk about like there are some poor beats on here. I kind of feel like I really didn't like the beat at all in La Bamba. That was kind of a bad rendition of like a song that could have been. Some of these ones on here like Drama and Hustle just don't really add up. Land of the Dealers was kind of a beat that was similar to Different Cloth and Ric Flair, but just didn't quite pull it off as well. That one was a little bit too dramatic, intense. I kind of feel like Stop had like a bad sample on here. That one was just not as good as Soul Plane when it came to the soulful stuff. And We In This Thing was trying to be like a kind of Dirty South kind of crunk type number. I think I want to say it had like Shoddy Low or some cat similar to Shoddy Low on there, but it just didn't work that well. It was kind of a poor rendition. I know Cameron can do Dirty South songs. He's teamed up with Gucci Mane and folks like that and Lil Wayne in the past, but that was just not it, I feel like. So there's just some ones on here. I mean, other ones to list. I mean, I didn't really talk about Drama and Hustle and some of those, but some of these just did not have noteworthy productions enough to really jump off the page. Like, this is a pretty excellent mixtape, and it does have some bustling songs in East Coast kind of grime as far as stepping out and kind of being lively, but not every single one of these beats kind of connects. And a lot of this is just kind of some dredge that just doesn't really have, I mean, a lot of this is just pretty hardcore and a lot more super underground oriented to where you have to have a more kind of grimy kind of appeal for like mixtape circuits to really get to some of these. I mean, I at least picked out some ones that have the more jumping off the page kind of productions, but some of these are just kind of poor and they just really kind of feel like just tackier productions and that sort of stuff. But me basically liking 7 songs out of 19 on this mixtape plus 3 almost songs, I just would have to say I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape, that would be approximately 10 out of 19. I'll go ahead and give this mixtape like a 6.25 out of 10. I'm going to raise the score a little bit just because it's a mixtape and it's free music, but I look after it. I mean, 10 out of 19 is a little bit more than half, but it just depends upon the degree as to how much I like these songs. Really, 7 out of 19 is more like 4.5 territory. That's a bit less than half, but I kind of look after it just being able to say that the almost songs are just somewhat on the fence, just trying to decide how I'm going to like it. I'll just have to listen to them more. I do like Lennox Ave, and I do like Arab music a little bit, so it just really depends on how some of those goes. And Can't Say Goodbye is all right, but just would have to say that's kind of the concept. The social score I'm going to give like a 7.25 though. I feel like the social score is just a little bit better because this is a pretty lively project. It's interesting that just that taste of East Coast. You kind of forget about the East Coast kind of vibes as far as their kind of city life, just because they're around more skyscrapers and buildings and more kind of like populate kind of things as far as that kind of goes. So it's just interesting kind of see some of that busy lifestyle from folks that are not just boom bap East Coast artists. It's good to kind of get some of those productions. They don't all hit, but it has enough liveliness to say that these guys, Cameron and Vado, had a good enough time. So that's definitely pretty dope. In terms of the future, like Vado has just kind of been strictly on the mixtape circuit, and Cameron's been putting out projects, but Cameron also has like a sports commentary show with Mace that he's been doing. But apparently he's got some more music getting ready to come out, so that's kind of the thing. But I am going to review some more of these mixtape type stuff, and I do want to review more Cameron and Vado stuff. So yeah.